Suicide Squad is not a movie. It wants to be a movie, it knows what movies look like, it has the elements of something that could be called a movie, and it really wants to convince you that it is in fact a movie. But it isn't. Suicide Squad has at least 15 non-diegetic pop songs that either have very little to do with or nothing to do with the scenes they're featured in. Well, I say scenes, but I should say a collection of shots involving dialogue and characters that could be scenes if they were edited like a movie is edited, but they weren't, so calling them scenes feels a bit disingenuous. I'll refer to them as sequences, that sounds more accurate. There was a score when there wasn't pop music, but it was one of the laziest scores I've heard in recent memory. It sounded like those royalty-free scores you find on the internet rather than music that was actually inspired by a movie. That's probably because it didn't have a movie to base the score off of, seeing as Suicide Squad was probably in the midst of being torn to shreds and then pieced back together like a confused Frankenstein who shops at Hot Topic. A significant portion of the characters in this thing had no reason to exist in it. Katana just sort of shows up, is given clumsy exposition as to who she is and what she does, and then may as well have never been in the movie, because as a character she adds quite literally nothing to any sequence she exists in. Captain Boomerang is someone the movie wants us to think is the quirky sidekick, but Harley Quinn already upstages him in the quirky jokey department, so he ends up being worthless. Rick Flag is the most generic soldier guy to ever slather their genericness all over the place. The role of good guy authority figure was definitely necessary, but he could have died and been replaced by any other soldier that was there, and it would have changed nothing about how he interacted with the other characters. El Diablo is neither compelling nor likable once you learn his quote-unquote tragic backstory. He just ends up being easy to hate. Killer Croc has like 3 lines, 2 of which were at least kind of amusing, which is something, but again, he's a non-entity and adds nothing to the dynamic. The Joker affects nothing. He does nothing. He exists in the movie to generate buzz for Jared Leto's portrayal of the character, but it fails to do that. Jared Leto's Joker is neither faithful to any comic version of the character, nor entertaining in his own right. He is easily the most boring on-screen Joker we've yet to witness in his 8 minutes of screen time. And Jared Leto's cast members put up with getting live rats and used condoms sent to them for this performance. I can at least say a bit more good things about Margot Robbie's performance, however. Harley Quinn in the film has okay moments with some eye-rolling lines and deliveries mixed in throughout. So overall a mixed bag, but it gives the audience a lot more than most of the other characters manage to. The big exception to all this is Will Smith as Deadshot, who plays Will Smith, but does it in a way that is consistently entertaining and engaging. A lot of his moments involving pathos are pretty hackneyed, but Will Smith himself basically carries this collection of sequences that is not a movie. The Enchantress exists, but I wish he didn't, because there's not a single redeeming moment involving the character in the entire thing. With the exception of the initial reveal, which had a creative effect involving hands, that was pretty neat. Everything else involving her dragged the entire thing down. And seeing as this was the main villain, that's kind of a big deal. Batman v Superman was a better movie than this, because it actually was a movie. It had scenes, and it knew what it wanted to be. It was, in my opinion, a bad movie, and I didn't like what it wanted to be, but it at least achieved what it was going for. Suicide Squad was either ripped to shreds by producers and editors, or it was always a mess, and this was a failed attempt to salvage it. Either way, the more I see of the DCEU, the less faith I have in the higher-ups at Warner Brothers. I don't think they know what movies are, because Suicide Squad certainly was not one.